and welcome to the second part of the tutorial where we will try our hand at a little bit of a demo. Hopefully I have covered the first basics about the tools. So we have the charcoal, we have the measuring device, we have the cloth and the eraser. Then we have our surface, our easel, with our paper. Right now this is very cheap paper that I use for practice. It's wrapping paper. You can buy this by the ton. It's like 50 cents for a ton of paper. Right, and we're going to do that sort of nice still life that I improvised with a couple of fruits. So, before we start, the position at the easel is something like this. This great easel should be placed exactly as I placed it here. So, if you're a right-hander, you should minimize the movements of the head and body from your drawing to whatever you're looking at. So, if my easel is facing this way, that's not cool, because I have to look at my drawing and then look this way. So all the way, what's that, like 90 degrees. This will destroy my neck, because if I do a 12-hour drawing, then I'll just keep doing this when I go home. So ideally, you want to be moving just your eyes. So you're here drawing, and then you just quickly glance at your object you're drawing, and you don't have to do any movements, any reorganizing, reorienting, anything. So this is placed in such a way that your target is just off the left side of your easel. And also it's good, you could do it on the right side as well, but then you'll have to look over your hand, and that's not optimal. So this is how we place it. Again, take very good care how you place your easel before you start, because anything beyond the 10 minutes drawing, and you'll do many of them if you're at all serious about drawing, so it's worth it to move and place your easel for a couple of minutes before you start, rather than draw or paint for 12 hours or 3 days in an incorrect position because it happened to be placed in a bad position for you. Then, the order of the day is we make a couple of sketches in order to see about our composition. That is, how that thing that we're going to draw fits on the page. Now, it happens to be vertical, that it's taller than it is wide, and so my paper is in the same position. If we're drawing something like a landscape, obviously you'll have to turn the paper. And there's various things that can be said by the way you place your paper, and we won't get into this because it's supposed to be a shorter tutorial. Now, we know we have vertical paper, portrait paper, and a tall kind of thing. Now, what we have to do is decide how to frame it. So to do this, we make this with our fingers, or we have some sort of a rectangular hole that we look through. So we make this, and we sort of frame it. We look through it, through the whole thing, like this. Like, let me see if I can show you how to show you this stuff. So we have the drawing, and like this, exactly. We try to make I can do it for my eye, but not for the camera. Try to make some sort of a frame, and then you frame it like this. Right? So, you look through the rectangular thingy, and you start to figure out how to place it. Then what you do is the following. You count the major objects that are there. For instance, we have a light colored background. We have a bunch of, at least one thing here, that's the red, the dark colored bag that's holding the apples. One, a light colored cloth above. And there's various spherical objects in there. So we sort of need to be aware of how many things there are in this picture and where to place them. Then we look at what the edges are. Let me show you practically. So we have to look at it. We have to have a few thoughts about composition. We have to sort of memorize how many objects there are and roughly where they're placed in our imaginary paper that we make like this. And then we have to make a few sketches before we start the actual large drawing. And we do this on smaller paper. And the instructions from my teacher were that we do between 2 or 3 and up to 5, 7 sketches, depending on the complexity of whatever we're drawing. So for some fruit like this, shouldn't be more than 2 or 3 sketches. So we take a look at the thing and we sketch it. So you can see this, and we sketch it. Just a very basic rough sketch, just to see what it would look like. We also color it to see where the dark parts are and where the light parts are. And we look at the relative light and dark values for the objects inside. So some of those oranges are darker than the apples and so on. Okay, so that's one sketch, let's say. Look like this, right? That's one sketch. We don't know if it's any good. That's when we need at least 2 of them to compare. So we don't know if this composition is okay. We can make this object larger, smaller, or place it somewhere else on the page. So we'll make another one. Have to reframe it and see if there's any way we can take and move this object so that it looks better. And for the sake of argument, let's say we manage to do this. This one is smaller on the page, so the object of interest is a bit farther away, smaller. Count the objects, we see where the dark spots are, where the light spots are. Okay, something like this. 7 minutes. Something like this. So the values are the same. Now, once we have at least 2 of these sketches, we sort of look at them. Which one is better? Which one is would look better on a wall? Something like this, right? So let's say I'm somewhat more impressed with the one on the right, let's say, because it gives me a better composition and I feel that it looks more okay than the first one. So this one I throw away, I put it out of sight, and this one that I have, I will place it in view. I play it on the floor next to my drawing, and then I would start drawing the thing. And how would I start this so that you can see my whole paper? I'll start from a clean paper to some extent, and then we start and we place the edges of the main object. So this is, let's say, the main edge. We draw this, by the way, from memory. We don't even have to look too much at the sketch to do it, too much at the main object to do it, because we have this in memory. We know there's a cloth somewhere up here. We know that there's some sort of a bag, and we know that one apple is going out, and I have 1 or 2 darker spots here. And that's all we have. And a couple of round fruit and fry. Okay, so we make this. Then we need to look from a distance. The larger the drawing, the more distance we need. And right, and then we need to start measuring. We measure, as I've shown you, the width against the height. We can also take, and it's recommended that we take some sort of a standard unit of measurement. For instance, from the top of the thing down to here. This is a vertical line that we take, and we use this as a unit to measure against other things. So once we have a fixed unit, we can then start to reconstruct the whole object. So looking at this thing, I see that just eyeballing it, I see that maybe my bag actually starts more to the left. So once we got something on paper, then we can start to make corrections. It's very important to move from a blank piece of paper in the first step to having something on it. Then we take our unit, our main unit, and we start measuring. Where's this? I mean, are these first two measurements right? Is this the correct width in proportion to this height? We have to measure all of this. So we do a measurement, then we do our constructions with the lines, and then we sort of squint at the whole thing in order to see the large spots of darkness and shade, and we just color it. We give it value. Right. I think there's a major step that I forgot before doing any sort of demo, but let's get on with this, and we'll talk about things as they appear. Now, I'll put maybe, 15, 20 minutes in this sort of demo, and then I explain now, let's just keep filming. So, we measure. And it's 1.5 between this here and this. Sorry, I can't draw like this. It's just 12 minutes and it's... and so on. So what we do is just go through these cycles. We measure objects against each other, then we draw the lines, so we're making the lines of where they are, and then we match what we see there with our levels of light and dark on the drawing. And the main parts, so what's important while doing this is to work by the level of importance. For instance, the general darkness of all this right side here is more important than, let's say, the tiny light on this apple. So we're going to at some point have to color this very broadly to darken it. And I'll do some of this and I'll restart with the next video when I'm ready to hit it with the first cloth.